WeRiseNation.com.
This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud and clear. If you seek it, you will find what you looking for. And once you hear us, it'll leave you looking for some more. Open the door, let us in, we got a special vibe. Now close the door, lock us in, and enjoy the ride. We about to talk about some things that make a lot of sense. And what we talking about, here sometimes will get intense. That's what we looking for, trying to spark a conversation. Join us live or you can listen on the We Rise Nation. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois.
Welcome back to another edition of the Grown Men Podcast. I am your host, BAN, and welcome back to the show. Well, as always, folks, this week we got a lot of topics to talk about. And joining me, of course, my brother, the Mark. Mark, it's good to have you back here on the Grown Man Podcast.
It's good to be back and definitely ready to get right into it. A lot of stuff going on, but yeah, it's good to be back as always. And I hope everybody is being as safe as they possibly can, and sit back and take in all what we have to give you.
Oh yeah, that's for sure, because we got a lot of opinions on a lot of different topics, and that's what grown men should be doing all across the world, not only in this country. But Mark, we're going to jump right into it because I want to start off saying that it's no turning back now. And the reason I say this is that, look, they're trying everything in the world, right? They're constantly repealing and trying to pull back all the rights that people have fought for and died for in this country. They're trying to claw it all back. And this is something right now where we have to see the moment and we have to seize it as well. We have to know exactly what we need to be doing to stop this kind of behavior.
Well, yeah, I mean, as we talked about, and what's continuing to go on, I mean, it's attack on like working class people, it's attack on black people, on any kind of minority in general, whatever you consider to be a minority, it's an attack on all of that. And then it's been an ongoing thing for quite some time, but now it's really pushed up. Like this was the planning and building in the making for like decades on. One thing about Republicans, MAGA, whatever you want to call them, people that leans right, people that caters to the wealthy, they always come up with plans from the first Reconstruction to like after the Civil War, they had a plan, to after civil rights and all that stuff back in the 60s and stuff, they had a plan to combat all of this stuff. I mean, the problem with us as society, I feel, is that we still fail to meet the moment. Like, if you want to say that, like, racism is over with and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you have to put into work to assure that. I mean, first of all, you can't really control how people are going to think, or like, especially if they brought up to think and believe a certain kind of thing. I mean, as the younger generation come along, yeah, they minds can change, but it's about the like environment that they are grown up around, that they grow up in. Who is putting these ideas and thoughts in their head. I mean, if you had a proper education and stuff, that would help out a great deal. But the whole reality of the situation is like, it's always going to be there. They're always going to have a plan to do harm to the less fortunate. Always. So in order to combat that, we have to stop being lazy and stop getting distracted. Frankly, I mean, again, this is a war against people who don't have much, but we get caught up into like all the other distractions and lose focus. So that's why it's like, I'm not completely like I'm very hopeful, but I'm at the same time I'm very skeptical.
Absolutely. And you got every right to be, as well as I am as well, Mark, because I'm seeing what's going on and I'm not liking what's going on. A lot of different things they're trying to do, but I wanted to play this clip for you right quick because I'm quite sure you might have came across this, and I can't think, they didn't have this young man's name up there, but down in, I believe it was Louisiana, he laid into these guys and he laid into them hard. So I'm going to play this clip and then we're going to discuss exactly what was said during this clip. But let me cue it up if I can get it queued.
And that the map's gonna pass, if y'all can give us less than 0 seats, you would do it. Y'all do this under the orders of somebody that said the Civil Rights Act was harmful to white people, that it caused reverse racism. RFK said that black children are overfilled on antidepressants and that they need to be reparented on different forms, all of them. Pete Hegseth constantly brings Doug Wilson to the Pentagon to give a prayer service. Doug Wilson is the same pastor that said that slave owners were on strong spiritual ground. I don't have no belief and no morality on anybody that followed Donald Trump. If you wasn't with this map, you wouldn't be underneath this president. You wouldn't be in your party. You would stand up, you would stand against it, you would speak out about it. So as far as I'm concerned, if you here as one of these Trump Republicans, you already showed us who you are. You showed us what you want to do. And I believe the country as a whole is rebuking your party. Y'all are in a death spot. That's why y'all have to redistrict. That's why y'all have to cheat. That's why Trump got to go to Texas and say he entitled to 5 more seats. It's because y'all know what y'all doing is abhorrent. We letting our people die in Iran based on false pretense that Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent said ain't real. Y'all okay with all that. So I'm positive y'all gonna be okay with the match. But the beautiful thing is, the children that y'all have made and the people that's younger than y'all don't support none of this racism that y'all want. The MAGA party is the last breath of the Confederacy. And I'll be happy to see millennials and Gen Z bury y'all. There will be no more of your party. The midterms gonna come, y'all gonna get wiped out. Trump gonna get dragged out of the White House, and I'ma love every second of it. Because y'all loved every second of the suffering that he caused to everybody in this country. And worldwide, we starve in Cuba. We bomb Nigeria. We holding Zimbabwe and Zambia hostage for their minerals. We don't wanna give them aid support. The pro-lifers that say all life is special, y'all letting kids die of AIDS. What part of your Bible say that? Point out the scripture. I think everybody would love to see it. And we would love to see y'all in the midterms.
What'd you think about that clip, Mark?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I've heard it before. I was listening to that earlier this week, but he's absolutely right, and he's dead on, and that's the part that gives me hope. When you have, like, brothers like that coming up to bat, stepping up to bat to speak out, and that's what we need more of, and I certainly hope he's right. And I mean, this is the time right now to get motivated, to get out there and to get involved. I mean, if you're not going to vote for anything else, vote against Felon 47. Vote against all the people that's representing him and that's trying to maneuver on his behalf, because it's for your own good. And I pushed back many times to, like, say, like, yeah, like a lot of people do get turned off and disengaged with voting when they don't see things moving fast enough or they don't see their conditions changing or whatnot. But right now, I can, like, honestly say things certainly can get a whole lot worse. They can get a whole lot worse.
Yep.
And I don't put past any of these people that's in power right now to try to make it all the way back to the 1800s when you see black man in the fields with their shirts off.
Yeah.
If you don't think that can happen, that can easily be put into place. Like, I mean, it'll probably be a big battle. I mean, sure. I mean, you know, but like that is a possibility. I think a lot of us don't believe like, like, you know, this will never happen again. But there's stuff that's been happening right now that we thought wouldn't happen again. You didn't think that we would have a convicted felon as the president of the United States. Come on, man.
Right. Absolutely. It's one of those situations where I heard that brother speak and he fueled me, right? He got me pumped up. He got me amped up. He got me right where I need to be in this moment. I felt every word and I agreed with everything he said, and he articulated it just the way that it should have been said, because he has that gift of gab, right? That gift of speech. And I love to see a brother come along and drop it because he put those people in their places. And yes, the future generation will get past racism. They will. It might not be in our lifetimes, but they will eventually get past that. And all these old relics will be left behind, just like some of them were left behind in the past. But for them to be doing what they're doing, he's absolutely right. Which slides us right into the next topic, Mark, because it lays right into this. And that is Benny Thompson down in Mississippi took a stand, and he's holding on to his seat because Governor Tate Reeves down there in Mississippi folded. He tacoed just like Felon 47. But what you have to say about this? Because, you know, Benny, close to our family, you know, and we know the man down there in Mississippi. My mother and your aunt knows him. So it's one of these situations that I love to see what's going on right now. And I think there's more fight that's going to be coming.
Oh, yes, I think that's a very good thing. And yes, we want to see more of it. We want to see harder, because the reality of it is that Mississippi is a state that is about 30 to 40% black.
Yes.
So it's like, for the governor down there, he did the wise choice because he knew that people was going to be out in the street. Because I think, again, like a lot of people are waking up to seeing what's going on, and they're not liking it, and they sick and tired of it by this point. We need to get more money to be spent down there, and that's like, you know what I'm saying, that's directed towards like the DNC and all that kind of stuff, because for far too long, like they sit there and did not want to invest in these red states. It's like, oh, well, those are red states. No, there's no such thing as red states or blue states for that matter. Because you got people that's like, you know, common sense thinkers and stuff like that. You got people that just don't want to see, you know, people being mistreated and being abused and having rights taken away from them. That's just common sense. You know, forget all this color stuff and gotta be divided left and right, because we're not even at that point where we're discussing, like, you know what I'm saying, policy choices of, I think this person should have to pay lesser taxes and so and so or whatever. Right now it's just about having your basic human rights stripped.
Yep.
Basic human rights stripped. Because this country that was stolen in the very beginning, you know what I'm saying, like led people to believe like, oh, this is the best country in the world because we have these rights, because everybody's welcome, and pull yourself up from your bootstraps and all that kind of stuff, all that kind of noise, because it was all just noise. It was all just talk. In the very beginning, it was founded by people who wanted to get away from being ruled by a king. And that's what they fought against. And it was for their own best interest. At the same time, they had ownership over other people that they didn't consider human beings. You know, so once you get that part of it straight, then you can move forward accordingly. But I think it's great that the brother Thompson down there is fighting back and like holding on to his seat, and that's just one seat. You should have way more representation in Mississippi than what they have, and that's
Absolutely.
The whole point of it. They have a chance now to get them a new a senator, and they also have a crack at that governor's race if people get out there and support those like southern areas, and if the people of those towns, like, you know, wake these people up to do something, or otherwise it's just going to get a whole lot worse, because there's a lot of mess to clean up.
Absolutely, Mark. You're 100% correct. Look, this country was founded 250 years ago, right? Coming this year is going to be the big anniversary of that, right?
Yep.
And the concept of America sounded great. But the implementation of the rights as stated fell well short of that. And that's the main issue. So as you said, Benny Thompson down there in Mississippi, and we should have more black representatives. But this redistricting and this gerrymandering that's going on is something that's causing the problems. Because for the simple fact, white Americans in that region, there are some who just want to say, look, we want to be the law of the land. And we don't care about what color you are. But yet the people that they're representing in the district have no say-so of who they pick as their leader of their districts. So that is about color. So when they say these things, I think that it's asinine for you to lie to people's face. That's why I said when the young brother spoke up when we played the clip, and he's speaking exactly on that. They're trying to take away Black America's representation, and we're just not going to allow that to happen.
No, not at all. Sorry, I was on mute. No, not at all. And that's the thing, that people are waking up to this, and they cannot stop. This is the last stand, because I believe he said that too in like a longer version of the speech I heard. But this is like pretty much the last stand of white supremacy, because that's pretty much what it is. If you subscribe to whiteness and all that kind of stuff, you are part of it. Like you have some people that's like, oh, I'm not a racist. I got black friends. I like to watch the NBA and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like if you subscribe to like this stuff and don't see anything wrong, if you didn't see anything wrong with them, with ICE, killing people in the streets and killing people in detention centers, and you didn't find any problem with calling out Somalians and stuff like that, saying that they're all criminals and crooks, and saying that the Haitian folks are out there eating dogs and cats and all of that stuff. You ain't have any problem with any of this stuff. You are definitely a big part of the problem. It says a lot about you than everybody else in the country and the world.
Absolutely.
Because it's just basic human rights and decencies that we should all be able to live up to. But they sit there and attack the marginalized groups of people. That's what the Republican parties have been built on for like the last decade, even longer than that, is to sit there and point your finger at somebody else, the marginalized people, whether it be the gays and the trans, or the black folks, or the you know what I'm saying, like the damn Spanish speaking people and stuff. Like, yeah, there's the bad guy. That's the reason why you can't get health care, or that's the reason why you can't get a raise at your job, because all the Mexicans taking the jobs, right? Well, the border's been closed.
Right.
Have they not?
Right.
All that stuff they done. So where are all these jobs and all this kind of stuff? I mean, it's all nonsense. And just like LBJ, President Lyndon Baines Johnson had once said, is that if you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than the best black man, then he won't notice you robbing. With your hands in his pocket.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The same playbook that they've been doing for centuries now at this point. And it's about time that people recognize and realize what's going on if they truly believe in democracy. Or if otherwise, if you're one of the people that say like, oh, I don't vote, and I'm not gonna be, hey, that's fine too. Don't vote, don't get involved, but also don't complain about it.
Exactly.
Just deal with it and live with it.
Exactly.
As best you can.
Exactly. So for Brother Benny Thompson down there, we applaud you. We glad that you did what you had to do and took that stand. And everybody need to take that stand to make sure that our representation remains intact. Another thing I want to jump into, Mark, it slides right into that as well, and that is the class wars. Because we've discussed that before here on the Grown Men Podcast. It's no longer just about race. Now it's about what you have, right? The haves and the have-nots. So what do you see with these class wars, and how is it breaking down and affecting people?
The class war has been happening from the very beginning. I mean, from the times that like you had the oligarchs. This was like late 1800s and stuff, 1890s to like the 1900s and stuff, when they had all this stuff where like they made people work like 16, 17-hour days. You had to work 7 days a week and all that stuff, and still barely had enough to feed yourself. It's always been a class warfare. They never like for people back in those days, in like order to vote. Let's just set aside all the racism and black people 3/5 of man and all that stuff. Just like what they considered regular human beings, white people and stuff. They could not get a vote unless they own property, unless they own land.
Right.
You had to be a landowner to vote.
Yep.
And women was property. So
exactly.
Women didn't get to vote at all, as we know.
Exactly.
So I mean, I say all that to say like it's always been about the haves and the have-nots. It's about the haves want to control and hold power over the have-nots. And then what they would do is like they'd take one of the have-nots, just like they take one of the blacks, and they give them a nice little position, put a little bit more extra coins in their pocket to make them feel like, hey, you better than those people, so you need to go on here and be with us. And that's what we at today, where it's like people keep on like climbing. They don't want to be oppressed no more, and just as long as they get like a little bit of a taste, that's good enough for them. As we spoke about all the time, on and off of the air, we always come across these people that's good with feeling like they doing better than the people that they are around, that they are in community with, but never wanting to have more than the ones that's on top, and they sit there and settle for the crumbs. These are crumbs that you are getting. You know what I'm saying? It might help, like, you know what I'm saying, you and yours, like your family, or maybe you can afford to put your kid through college, through school. Okay, that's good enough for you. I mean, that's the whole problem. That's how they keep control over all of us, the people with the haves that got the money. And, and what do they do with their money? They sit there and want more money to what? To have more boats, have more houses, more jets, go out of space for 18 seconds. I mean, it's just like excessive greed, and it's hurting the whole country as a whole. I mean, so it's like when you come with these things, like, yeah, we need to tax the rich, like Mayor Mondani is doing over there in New York. People are losing their mind. You got the Shark Tank guy, getting all hot and bothered on CNN or whatever media platform that he can get on where he can spur out his garbage because Zoran Mondani wants to tax 2% of $1 million. You know how much 2% is? I mean, I'm not a math wizard, but that's very teeny tiny amount of money.
Yeah,
but that 2% from off of millions from these billionaires and stuff can go a long way towards healthcare, towards jobs, towards education, which should be main concerns that any society should have on top of their list. Because you want the future generations to prosper and do better than the last generation. That's what it's supposed to be all about, but these people want to be selective.
Well, he's also balancing the budget in New York City. So that's a lot of things that they don't want to talk about, but he's balancing the budget. And they're going out of their minds. They're pulling their hair out saying, how is he doing this? Simple. He's making these millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share. That's all people ever asked in the first place. If people paid their fair share, you can balance the budgets. But when they talk about class, Mark, this is what I see when I talk about these class wars, right? So it starts at the very bottom, right? When you have a homeless person, right? And then you have another person who has a little bit more than a homeless person. They think they're better than them because they have a home and they don't. So then at that point, you have the people who are on top of the person who has a little bit of something, and he has more than the homeless person, but he has more than him. So now he thinks he's better. Then you get up to the 100,000-aire who has more than the 1,000-aire, who has more than the other person, who has more than a homeless person. You see what I'm saying? You work your way up on the scale and you continue. And I say that to say, look, if someone's making $20 million a year, you feel like the big man, right? He's paying you $20 million a year to do whatever job that you do. but he's making $200 billion a year. That's the point. That's the point that I'm getting at, is when the class, the class wars start, it starts at the very bottom and it works its way up. Each party is leaning on the last party, but the people on top are leaning on everyone.
Well, let me just say this real quick. I mean this, that we have been morally bankrupt for like a long time. And what I mean by that is that we just simply, got away from the idea of like, caring and stuff. We are a very superficial society. We praise and honor those who has the most. Like, I mean, forget about your school teachers and your doctors and stuff like that. Like these, like, who humanitarians out here that's putting in work, that's trying to, like, come up with cures and to solve all kind of illnesses and disease and trying to make people have a better life. We like, give them like a little bit of a light applause and then move them to the side. But look at this guy who make these mega bucks. Look at Donald Trump. He's a billionaire. Let's put him. Let's make rap songs about him.
Right.
It's like, I mean, we sit there and glorify these evil and corrupt individuals because of what they have, because they have all these cars that they couldn't possibly be able to drive all of them, at least not all at once. I mean, that's the whole thing about it. So, like, yeah, you are absolutely right when it comes to that. And it's like I said before, like everybody, nobody wants to be the oppressed. Like nobody wants to be broke. Even broke people hate broke people. Right. Nobody likes that whole idea. And we remember how it used to be back in the day, man. You go out to the store and like, grandma give you like, food stamps and stuff, and then you feel a sense of shame because you don't want to like, look like the broke kid, or you don't the broke kid on the block, or like you don't want to be like the broke kid in your classroom. You're gonna get clowned and stuff for wearing some like, old shoes or whatever and stuff like that. It's like we have that planet in our mind and that in our psyches that like, life is all about what you have, what your status is, what your power is. And for far too long, we have like inadvertently taught that to our youth. It's all about getting money and about having money. Everything's about having money to be able to do anything. Money can be used for goods and services.
Yep.
And saying like you don't want to work on having a relationship because if you got like enough money, you can buy yourself pleasure from a woman, or you can buy like a woman like Felon 47 bought his latest wife, which will probably be his last wife because he's about to be out of here pretty soon.
Right.
But that's a whole nother topic. But that's the whole thing about it. If you have enough money and status and things like that, you can buy your way into things. You can sit there and go and fly out to get surgery if you need to, or like whatever the case is. And that's how they sit there and design this whole country to be so superficial and away from the values and the ideas of goal is to build community to further advance the human race, period. Not a black thing, not a white thing or whatever, but just the human race to be more sophisticated, to be less barbaric, to actually have the goal of humanity to seeing people, live and prosper and grow more and to be better, like I just said, than like the previous generation. So it's basically simple divide and conquer. They keep us divided with this class stuff and everything. And we never ask questions about, paying money for wars and things like that. But when it comes to free college or, health care for everybody, I don't know. How we going to pay for those things? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Mark, where, all those things, what you said are true, because for the simple fact, it's just other people leaning on other people, but the people at the top are the ones who ultimately win. Another topic I wanted to talk about, Mark, I know you wanted to talk about, it was something you brought to me, is why some blacks tolerate disrespect from whites. And you were speaking about what went on with the whole celebrity roast of Kevin Hart. So why don't you give us your insight on what went down?
So pretty like, to that topic, like, yes, we had the Kevin Hart roast. This was on Netflix, I believe. I think they filmed that. It was in Inglewood, California, which is one of the blackest areas of Cali.
Yeah.
I think it's like 39.1% of black folks in that particular area. But during that event, of all the comedians and stuff, Cat Williams also made an appearance where he because I think most people know by now that him and Kevin Hart have been having this beef with each other that's been like pretty much almost nearly a decade long, maybe longer than that.
Right.
And Cat Williams went in there and, like, you know, pretty much clowned and roasted and did all of the things. But before Cat Williams left off the stage, Kevin Hart had jumped out and kind of broke script, or maybe that was a part of the script, and, you know, pretty much got a whole, like, you know, squash the beef moment, or like, you know, hugged it out moment. But the thing that was funny with that is that Cat Williams didn't have anything positive to say about Kevin Hart whatsoever, so I don't know. But he kind of went off script with that. But also featured in that was a comedian by the name of Tony Hinchcliffe.
Right.
For those of you who may not be familiar or may have heard that name, this guy was famous. He received mainstream attention for his appearance at the Trump NYC New York City campaign rally, where he referred to the island of Puerto Rico as garbage floating in the ocean.
Right.
Hinchcliffe, said at the Kevin Hart's roast, pretty much had nothing but, like, you know, racist jokes, because that's what he is. He's a racial comedian. He likes to press the envelope, or, you know, want to, like, you know, be edgy, or whatever you want to call it as. But if you listen to, like, any of his work, because he has his own platform, he has a big following. Mostly white people, mostly racist people follow and listen to him, what he got to say. That is his audience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, he goes on to make a George Floyd joke, and talking about, like, things like George Floyd is probably laughing so hard as he's looking up at us, meaning that George Floyd is in hell, that he can't breathe.
Right.
And, you know, George Floyd, as people would know, is very significant, because in 2020, it was a public lynching that happened with him. And, like, you know, as we had, and many people have talked about now on the Nas, I mean, it pretty much woke up the whole country, let alone the whole world, to see something so heinous be caught on film, so egregious. You know, a man losing his life, and I don't give a damn what George Floyd did. I don't care how many drugs he took. I don't care what kind of, like, crimes he was committing. I mean, if you are okay with somebody having a knee on their neck until they die, there's something wrong with you. There's something to be said about yourself. You need to look in the mirror.
Well,
but nevertheless,
why didn't he
go ahead.
Why didn't he say all this stuff about Charlie Kirk? He could have said the same thing when Charlie Kirk was taking that bullet. Why he didn't say Charlie Kirk is looking up from hell? See, that's my thing. To be fair,
there was I think there was a couple comedians that did make, like, you know, Charlie Kirk jokes up there, but, you know, of course,
was it him? Was it him? That's the thing. If you're gonna make a George Floyd joke, okay, which, you know, is in bad taste, but once again, that's in the eye of the beholder, whoever thinks that's funny or not. But you have to do, you know, the same thing with Charlie Kirk. Let's make some Charlie Kirk jokes as well. See, he knows where his bread is buttered. He knows that racist whites listen to his program, so he's going to pander and cater to those people.
And since you brought that up, and, like, I mean, and that's the whole thing too, like, again, when people was making, like, comments about Charlie Kirk and all this kind of stuff, those people was trying to get them people canceled.
Right.
They're trying to get, like, what's his face,
Jimmy Kimmel
canceled again right now.
Yeah.
Because of the joke that he made, like, prior to the so-called attempted assassination of Felon 47. And that's my whole point. I mean, if it's all just jokes and stuff, and, you know, everybody's being, like, you know, snowflakes because they can't handle a joke about Nancy Pelosi's husband being robbed, or, like, you know, the Obamas being compared to ape.
Right.
You can't handle those jokes and stuff. You're a snowflake. But when the tables are turned, oh no, they're trying to get you canceled. They're trying to get you put out the room, put off the stage, whatever. All of this stuff. But with this, like, you know what I'm saying? Hinchcliffe guy, I don't got nothing wrong with him making, like, George Floyd jokes and all that. I mean, because jokes are jokes. Jokes are freedom of speech. That's fine and dandy. But why did it have to be this platform? Why did it have to be on this? And that goes back to the beginning of the topic where you said is like, why do we as black people allow such tongue foolishness to, like, you know what I'm saying, like occur on our platforms? When you somebody like a Kevin Hart, who is a very successful man, with his career, with his comedy, he's been doing this for more than 2 decades. And he's also a very smart and shrewd businessman. He's very business-minded. And I respect a lot of things that he do as far as like getting other people put on in their career and helping other people out and all that kind of stuff. Now, Kevin Hart, to be fair, he don't consider himself a political person. I mean, you never really hear him speak out too much in his stand-up routines or like otherwise about like, politics and things like that. Okay, that's fair enough. But he does consider himself a person of the community. And if you a person of the community and stuff, you cannot be having somebody like a Tony Hinchcliffe up there making those type of statements. That wasn't the time or the place for that. George Floyd been gone for almost 6 years now, going on 6 years in a few weeks. It's like, why is that necessary? Who is that for? And that's just another way, especially during this climate in the world, in this country right now, with all the stuff that's happening to black people, that some people want to pretend that's not happening. If you ask a guy like Stephen A. Smith, I'm quite sure he'd say differently. But the whole fact of the matter is that it's been an attack on black people, period. And like when you're sitting there and doing these things and allowing things to happen, you're doing a discredit, you're doing more harm to your very community. And Kevin Hart was sitting up there laughing. He was laughing at those jokes. Whether it was fake laughing or not, he's up there laughing about it. And like, what do a young person that sees that, how should they feel about that? Oh, they should feel that this is okay. This is normal. It's okay to do this. It's okay to make fun of George Floyd and to make fun of black people and stuff like that because this is what we are. We are less than.
Well,
that's pretty much like you might as well have the guy up there with blackface on.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Kevin Hart's a good friend with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and The Rock comes out with his comments as well, where he doesn't get into politics because, once again, as a lot of black entertainers do, they say that cuts their money when they choose one side or the other, so they just stay out of it. They don't make any comments about it. They try to avoid any political situations because they don't want to be labeled as being, against one side or the other. So they try to play that middle ground. So that's what they do. And I think Kevin Hart and a lot of these other black celebrities, unfortunately, they do the same thing. They all try to play that middle because we need those people's money. And hey, I understand if that's what you do and that's your stick. But for the rest of us who live in the real world, it's not cool to us.
But that's my whole thing is that Kevin Hart has money now. I don't know how much he's worth.
Maybe he don't have enough, Mark.
He has his own.
Maybe he don't have enough.
He has his own stuff.
Maybe he don't have enough. That's the whole point. For some people,
back to the last thing we were talking about, the greed takes over.
But for some people, it's never enough, right? For some people, they need more and more, and they also want to be liked. Because see, I know a lot of people like that who want to be liked. They have to have it. So I can see where, they would feel this way. Like I said, they want to play it down the middle. They don't want to offend anybody, regardless of what people are doing in politics right now, because it generally doesn't affect them. They don't have to worry about gas prices. If gas prices was $20 a gallon, they would still be able to afford it. So that's why they tolerate this kind of behavior. We talk about it here on the Grown Men Podcast, but that's why a lot of blacks tolerate it because they know where their bread is buttered. They know who are signing their checks.
And they're afraid to speak out. I mean, again, a lot of us continue to put ourselves in these shameful situations, mainly for the bag and status. despite having the advanced technology to do for ourselves, like take somebody like a Drewski, who's been on the scene. I mean, who's been like more out there with his videos and things like that, been blowing up more, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, but Drewski, he been in this game for like a long time too, like almost like a decade or longer, doing this stuff. But he's somebody that's like, you know, he bet on himself. He put in that time and work, and that's the thing. A lot of us don't want to put that much time, work, and effort into like doing our own thing. So we sit there and accept things like that. And it's one thing to forget or not to know where you come from, but it's another thing to simply not care where you come from. And that's my point too. I think a lot of people don't want to know about that stink of the ghetto no more. They don't want to care about that type of stuff, especially when they feel that they're being like a little bit successful and they getting like a little bit of money, and they feel that their family is like, you know what I'm saying, taken care of. They can afford their house and all that kind of stuff. They don't want to think about the past no more. Like, oh, that was the past. Racism is over. It's all right. Well, let's make these jokes. And this only helps further normalize people like Hinchcliffe and the idea of being successful to white people by any means necessary, and abandonment and disrespect of the people who put you on and stuff. And meaning that if there was no black people supporting Kevin Hart in the beginning, and Drewski, and a lot of these guys and stuff that's been successful. I'm talking about sports athletes and stuff like that too. All these guys been successful, but like more so with these entertainers and all that kind of stuff was because of black people supporting them. Black people had to support them first. Like you talking about the comedians way back in the day doing the chitlin circuit when they was going around with their company. Those were the black people that was come to their shows and paying nickels and dimes or whatever they had to support these comedians, these entertainers, to put them on, to get them to notice by white America. They're like, oh man, this guy is pretty funny. Let's go ahead and give him a show. See, we tend to like sit there and distance ourselves from that, like a Stephen A. Smith, when he was a broke kid in New York and stuff. I mean, you know, the people who was like, you know what I'm saying, reading his work and all that kind of stuff, those was black people. You know what I'm saying? We were the ones, we always put these people on there. What do they do once they get on? They disrespect us in such heinous ways that I think it's beyond ridiculous.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that, you know, we're going to continue to talk about here on the Grown Men Podcast because, as you said, Mark, it is ridiculous for Black Americans to sit there and tolerate this kind of treatment. But when it comes to that bag, you know, I guess it's all bets is off and they'll do anything for the money. Another topic I know you wanted to talk about, Mark, and that is Dana White. Of course, you know my opinion of Dana White and all these other tough guys. They just tough on TV, real life, quiet as church mice. But something he said recently that sparked your attention. What was it?
So, yeah, it wasn't so much of like, you know, talking about Dana White, but like, yeah, I mean, these comments that he was making pretty much about manhood and male masculinity and what makes a real man. And what is male weakness? I believe, for me, in this day and age, we really should like redefine what is considered male weakness. Like, what is it to be a man? But he was on Katie Miller's podcast. I mean, where she is a trash individual in her own right. I mean, right. For those who are not familiar, Katie Miller is the wife of Stephen Miller, one of Felon 47's top advisors. What many people have considered him as the shadow president. Right. He's the one that came up with all these horrific concepts of ICE and the brutality and things like that, and going over to countries and, like, you know, trying to take over and, you know, with this like corporal punishment and all this stuff. Stephen Miller is a Jewish man, but he is indeed a Nazi. His own family pretty much distance themselves from him and don't understand why he's acting the way he's acting and all that kind of stuff. But this isn't about Stephen Miller. Back to Dana White. He made comments saying that, like, when a man is talking about these, like, you know, mental health issues and all that kind of stuff, that's weakness. If a man is talking about his feelings, it's weakness. It's like, you know, unattractive. You can't even call yourself a man if you have feelings, or if you sitting there, you know, feeling a certain way, and God forbid that you cry about something. I mean, it's okay to cry, I guess, when you win a championship or win the title belt. That's the only time it's acceptable for a man to cry, but it's like they want those Gary Cooper types, the strong, silent type, like keep everything bottled up inside, or just take all your frustrations out in MMA or something like that, right? I mean, Dana White is a man who, as we both know and talked about, he put hands on his wife. I mean, the problem I have with all this stuff is just that right there when, you're telling young man to keep everything bottled up, don't expose yourself, don't put yourself out there like that, keep it all bottled up. And once you keep all this pressure bottled up, it's going to release at some point in time. And a lot of times that we've seen, like in recent history, is like, we've seen people abuse their family, abuse the people who care and love them the most, abuse women, abuse strangers. When you sit there and have a guy that's frustrated, got all this stuff going on with him, he don't know how to express himself. So let me go ahead and get this AR-47 or whatever, assault rifle, and let me go to a mall, or let me go to a church and shoot it up. Let me go to school and shoot it up. All of this stuff, all of these things that has been happening that I feel if we kind of reimagine how we teach our young men to be men, if we kind of have a different way of going about it, you can nip a lot of these issues, a lot of these problems in the bud. It's not gonna solve everything overnight, but it can start somewhere. It's like, if you have issues, you have something going on with you, you should be able to express yourself or have somebody that can hear you out, at least let you vent. Sometimes it could be as simple as that. And sometimes, in some cases, when you try to vent, somebody's calling you soft. Somebody's calling you a sissy. Some kind of form of weakness. I want to, keep my language as clean as possible. But, all the sort of things that people sit there can call you and consider you just for trying to, express your feelings, or address the way you feeling. So you keep it bottled up inside to that rage. It creates rage, and then you sit there and rage out or crash out, as the kids are saying, in the wrong situation. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where masculinity right now especially is the main topic because, with Felon 47, he wants to restore everything that he's considered masculine, like tanks and guns and all of these other things under the sun, all these other crazy ideas that he have in his head. And someone like Dana White, he prescribes to that. He subscribes to that, excuse me. These are the type of things that he likes. That's why he gathers up around Felon 47 and they go watch UFC fighters get tough and beat the hell out of each other. That's manly. That's bull. That's why I never watch it. It's garbage to me because I'm not a violent person by nature, but I can release a lot of violent behavior on people. That's why I stay away from them because it's people like him that I would release that violence on. Because when they talk that nonsense and then they go home and they hit their wife or they hit their girlfriend or God forbid they beat their children. That's the kind of rage and anger that happens, Mark, based on what you were saying, because people have mental health issues. And people think that this stuff was just invented. No, it's just not being talked about. Because back in the old era, they didn't talk about it because, as you alluded to, you wouldn't be manly if you talked about your issues or you cried about your issues. So for people like Dana White and people of that ilk, I have nothing for them because they're not real men, right? That's like Mark Wayne Mullin, the same guy, says what he wants to do with Chuck Schumer. He's a scumbag and he'd like to get him. Yeah, he would like to do that to a senior citizen because that's what Chuck Schumer is. But someone who is his age, like myself, who sits in Chicago, Illinois, and would dare Mark Wayne Mullin to come see me any given time. And let's talk about it. Let's have it out. Let's see who would come out on top of that issue. I'm tired of all these tough guys being tough at home with their families and beating on them and abusing them, or someone who can't defend themselves. But when real men step up to the plate, they're quiet as church mice. So that's what I think about people like Dana White and the rest of their ilk who believe in this nonsense and foolishness.
And I agree with you. I mean, like I said, the problem is, like for me, is that they have a platform and they have influence, and people pick up on that nonsense, and we have to find ways to try to reverse some of that, a lot of that garbage. And once again, I mean, that's the unfortunate part when you get these people that have these platforms and these influences, and they putting all that negative energy out there into the world, and too many people pick up on that and think that's the way it should be, because that leads to these bad police officers out there that use their badge to abuse communities that's already under attack. Or you have these politicians, these political leaders that sit there and use their power to abuse the whole world, let alone the country. So that's the issues that we need to address as a society, or do a better job of addressing that. And that white is simply POS. I mean, he's full of it and he knows it and he's weak. Because any man that's sitting there putting your hands on the woman, especially in public, the way he did it, that's weakness. That's what weakness is. That's male weakness right there, when it's you can't handle words, you can't handle a woman, calling you out on your nonsense, so you gotta lay hands on it and stuff like that. And we know that some women they got the fast mouth and they saying things and stuff, and sometimes when you get to argument and things get heated, words get said and all that kind of stuff. If anytime words are said to you and your first choice is I gotta lay hands on somebody, it shows how weak you really are as a human being, let alone a man.
Well said, Mark. Well said, because I agree with everything you just said. It's one of those situations that we're going to always talk about here on the Grown Men Podcast, because real men, grown men, never put their hands on women or children at all. Another thing I wanted to talk about, Mark, and bring up was Daz Dillinger suing Tupac's estate. And I wanted to talk about this because, I knew that Daz has a lot of talent. Of course, me and him, we're the same age. And it's one of those things where he was producing on a lot of those records that I didn't know he produced on. And it's one of those situations where right now him and Snoop are going at it. We know they're cousins and everything, that goes along with that. They're family and they're trying to work out their issues. But that's a whole big chunk of money that, Daz is saying. I believe it's something like $91,000 that was supposed to have been paid. So the payment records, go back to 2024, and they paid him $91,000. But of course, we know that songs like Ambition of a Rider, I Ain't Mad at You, and two of America's Most Wanted, and Got My Mind Made Up, all those songs were like diamond, right? They went over platinum, close to diamond, especially now as it's still generating revenue. But what do you have to say about the fact that this is what, the thing that I really want to talk about is that the estate of Tupac is not really being handled that well, where you have, his sister and another executive from Interscope battling it out to see who has the rights to the man. It's sad that, he didn't get to have children before he passed, but it's another thing to not really have your family per se being the ones that are in charge of your estate.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, because I did not realize who was in charge of Tupac's estate. I know when his mother passed away, I just pretty much assumed, whatever family was gonna, assume the role or, take over that. I mean, that's just a whole kind of messy situation. I just want to, take it back to, when they was making those songs and putting the work in, producing and coming up with the ideas and writing lines and all that kind of stuff, creating all the material for those songs back in the day. For me personally, it's always easy to forget, how young all of them was, Dash and Snoop and Pac and all those kind of things. So, I say that to say, at the time, they probably didn't realize how much any of that stuff was going to blow up. And as we spoke about many times before on the program, like, you know what I'm saying, rap music, hip hop, gangster rap, whatever genre you want to put it under, and all of it, like rap, period, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Nobody never knew, you know, how big that thing was going to get. I mean, like, a lot of people thought it'd be a joke. A lot of people thought it'd be just a fad that was just going to last a couple years or whatever. Then people would go back to, like, you know, listening and making real music, you know, where you have to, you know, be skilled to play a musical instrument or something like that, to have, like, the vocal cords to sing and all that type of stuff, right? So it's like a lot of stuff, they put in a whole lot of work using their, like, you know, creativity, and then how young they all was, they didn't realize the business of show business.
Yeah.
Like, we always get the show part. Like, we can do the show part exceptionally well, but it's that business part of it, the biz, you know, that we kind of fall short on, and then unfortunately we get taken advantage of. And this is a situation where, like, a lot of folks got taken advantage, and then, like, a lot of people see those big numbers and feel like, hey, I should be getting those numbers. I mean, that greed factor takes in. It is not cut fairly. So, I mean, you know, with all that said, I mean, yeah, I think Dash definitely have a leg to stand on and have a right to have some, like, you know, grievances, like, based off the work that he put into that. And then, like, you know what I'm saying, you look at it on the other end, is like, you know, we or the people that get involved into, like, you know, music and, like, entertainment and all of it need to do a better job of being better educated about these deals and these contracts and all this kind of stuff that's going on. I mean, we done talked about all this stuff from, like, you know, TLC and people like that like, I mean, Pac and stuff. I mean, like, you know, before, like, his mother was able to finally, like, you know what I'm saying, gain control over his estate. I mean, you said it before, like, Tupac, when he died, he only had, like, about $15,000 in his bank account.
Maybe less than that. Maybe less than that. Who know? Who really knows?
Maybe less than that. And that itself is shame.
Yeah, it to me, it's a shame because, you know, that camp was a great camp, and they could have done greater things than they did had they had the right people leading it, you know. And everybody knows what Suge Knight was about. And for now, you know, into eternity, people are going to have stories about that, and I'm not going to rehash that whole Death Row deal. But, you know, when Pac signed that deal, as we know, Death Row Records was an entity under Interscope. So it's just like you had a label, like, say we got We Rise, you know, Entertainment, and then we're under a different company. If you sign that deal and it has the name of that, the not the sub company, which is We Rise Entertainment, but another company under it, then those are the people who will own the rights to your stuff. And see, when you're young like that, when you're like 23, 24, 25, you're not thinking about that kind of stuff. And Tupac wasn't thinking about that kind of stuff. What would happen to his estate? You know, his thing was, how long will you mourn me? Well, people been mourning him for years and years, but the people who worked on your music is being shafted for years and years. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I see when I think about a case like this. And I'm quite sure, and we know this to be true, that there's many more stories in the music industry like this.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and Pac was another one of those, like, individuals that had, like, a whole lot of deep issues that, like, you know, unfortunately he wasn't able to, like, you know, fully address. I mean, he was addressing a lot of that stuff through his music and through his writings. If you read his, like, journal or diary that he kept, because I believe that was, like, put out, like, you know, decades ago and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, and like you just put up, like, man, when you young, when you in your, like, you know, early 20s and all that kind of stuff, man, you just thinking about, like, the fast life, the fun life. You want to go out and be known and be, like, you know what I'm saying, praised for your work and all that kind of stuff, and have all the women and, you know, you want to pop the bottles and all of the fun stuff. And it's like, you know, the people allow you to, like, sit there, like, you know, go along with that. As long as you're not paying attention to, like, the important part, again, the business part. We got the show so down packed. It's the business that we have to be more in tune and educated on. And like a lot of rappers, a lot of like entertainers, I believe a little bit more savvy and more like, mindful of those things than they were now than they were back then, which is a good thing. And like, we want to like, hopefully see that continue to grow, because the reality of it is that we should have more control over music, period. And what I mean by we as black people and stuff. You should have like, black companies owning distribution rights and all that kind of stuff. We can develop these platforms if we don't sit there and like shortchange ourselves or just like, go for like the fast, the big money, upfront money. Like you gotta like let that thing grow and build, which brings me to mind and think of somebody like Ryan Coogler real quick. Ryan Coogler is the famous director. He put out the movie Sinners and a lot of movies and stuff like that, but he owns the rights to Sinners. After 25 years, the movie rights to Sinners and everything like that becomes under his control.
That's
so
good.
Any money that's made from that is going to go back to his family and his people. He got that in writing, and that's what we need more, young people to like, understand. If you're going to get into this cutthroat world of entertainment, and it's very brutal and it's very messy, and it's pretty much all of the things, you want to get into it the smart way and make sure that you're protecting your interests as best you can, because there's vultures all over the place. No doubt about it.
Absolutely, Mark. It's one of them situations where we're going to continue to monitor and talk about it here on the Grown Man Podcast, because everything you said is true. We should own more of the stuff that we actually make. And hopefully in the future, this is a story that can help someone else gain some kind of traction and some control over their creations. Another topic I wanted to bring up was Mayor Brandon Johnson here in the city of Chicago, celebrating 3 years in office and touting the things that he has achieved and more of the things that he wants to do. And there's a lot of different things in there that he wants to do. And education, of course, is at the top of the list, along with mental health and a lot of other issues. And of course, that's not popular with everyone in the city, as they are talking about the violence that is happening in the city. They rather talk about that. But what do you think about Brandon Johnson and his 3 years in office?
Well, the thing about it is like numbers overall when it comes to violence have dropped. But like we understand, like, like Chicago is what it is. There's a lot of reasons to these violence and things like that, but it's like, as we discussed this before, when it comes to a mayor of color, a black mayor and stuff, we pretty much, people are throwing everything, including the kitchen sink at him. Every little thing he say, every little decision he make, we was talking about off mic earlier, like he made a comment about like, yeah, just like, locking up people is not going to be just to like, answer to like, soft and violent. And that's not a direct quote. I don't have like a complete quote or whatever it was that they took. Because you know how they do. They take like pieces of something that somebody says. They don't like, listen or look at the full conversation of what he was like, speaking on. But, basically like, they take no statements like that into like, say like, oh, see, he's not supporting law enforcement, or he's for the criminals being out in the streets and doing this and that and whatever and stuff. But you don't want to look at like the achievements that has been made in the city, and you want to sit there and like, point at the whole like immigration thing, the problem that he did not create, but he's trying to deal with it in a more like humane sense, as opposed to just like, okay, these like illegals, they just all criminals, and let's like, lock them up and get them up out of here as soon as possible. He's about building. He's trying to build something. Right. That's what Chicago needs. We're trying to build something. Is it perfect? No. There's a lot of things that's happening, that's going on in these communities, and it got to take a community to sit there and stand up and say and speak out on it. And we talked about that before too, how you have like a lot of people that's living in these communities that look the other way or don't like, report something that's going on. Like we talked about the whole snitching thing and all that kind of stuff. Like, if you see wrong happening in your community, in your neighborhood, you damn well should be reporting that. You should be speaking up about it. And like the problem is that what Mayor Brandon Johnson is trying to do is get less corrupt police officers. I mean, they've been so corrupt for so long, the Chicago PD.
Right.
It's so much of it, so much corruption for like a long time. It's gonna take some real effort to try to weed all of that stuff out. So I mean, again, he's 3 years in, and everybody will have an opportunity when he's gonna come up for re-election to be like, hey, are we gonna continue down this path, or do you want to change it up? But it's very like counterproductive when you have people out there just like throwing shots at them just to be throwing shots at them because they don't like the way he says certain things.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I see it as this, especially one of his greatest critics who I speak about and have spoken about here before on the Grown Man Podcast, and that is Alderman Ray Lopez, who used to be the alderman over here in our area, right? And he really was upset and offended when Mayor Brandon Johnson spoke. I believe it was last year. It might have been, or the year before last. I believe it was last year. And he spoke about helping the black children in the community as well as the brown children. And of course, as Lopez does, he goes on Fox News and he talks to Sean Hannity and all these people and talk about how racist Brandon Johnson is when he doesn't look in the mirror and look at himself. He has to look at himself because, Ray Lopez is around the same age I am. I never heard any of these guys complain when Rahm Emanuel was mayor or when Richard Daley was mayor. I never heard any of these complaints. But all of a sudden, he's jumping out of the closet with everything he can say in the world about what's going on in the city of Chicago, about the violence and about the team takeovers and all these things. And once again, I'm in agreement with Brandon Johnson when he says, look, locking everybody up is not the answer, but they do have to find an answer. But I don't think that's it. You have to get to the root of the problem of why these kids are wilding out. Because when you see the cases that I've been looking at lately, which was a 14-year-old, that carjacked a 75-year-old woman that had a disability, there's some disconnect there. There's something wrong with that kid. Because why else would you do something like that, right?
Exactly. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I mean, like I've been using this word a lot lately, and that's counterproductive. All that kind of stuff. I mean, it's once again, it always happens anytime you see, like, what I'm saying, some kind of like, black leadership, because they programmed it into the psyches. It's like, that is not the role of a black person to be in charge of something. I mean, we can sit there and make the same, like, comparisons when it comes to sports and football coaches and even basketball coaches and stuff. I mean, like, how many coaches you see, have a chance to, like, really, like, build and develop a team is once the team start like losing and going bad, like that black head coach is going to be the first to go. The same thing with like, these city officials and politicians and things like that. I mean, the ones who's not taking all the big campaign money, the big donations from these big businesses and things like that, is tend to always like point their finger at that person like, oh, well, like, yeah, well, they ain't doing nothing, or they not doing enough, or they, doing all the wrong things. You want to always point out all the problems, never want to give the flowers to the achievements and things like that. This guy Lopez has an agenda. It's clearly he has the agenda. Anytime you go on Fox News, because everybody know what Fox News is, you know what they're about, especially if you on a show like a Sean Hannity show, who's not even a journalist. This guy is a opinionated person at best, if you want to call him that. But he's all about propaganda, and this once again just like follows the same playbook of divide and conquer, because they would like to see again. They want to have a Republican mayor in Chicago, and when you have enough like friction and divide and stuff like that, when you sitting there and splitting and splintering voters and stuff like that, that opens the door for so-called conservative influence to come in and take over. And when they take over, they're going to do that in a big way. You're going to have police out there banging heads. Is that what we really need? Is that going to help the city? Is to having like, young kids, 11, 12 years old, getting like knocked down on the streets and having their head banged against the cars and the walls and things like that? That's what you want? Authoritarian? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's one of them situations where, we have to do better, right, in this city and learn to get together and discuss our grievances. Yes, you represent your ward, but there are many other wards in the cities that have different issues. So, I just say for Brandon Johnson right now, the grade is still out on him. Let's see what he's doing. Right now, they're doing a lot of work around the city as crews are out in the streets. They're repairing the streets. They're doing work in the sewers and everything else. Everything is starting to come together. So let's see where he goes with this. Let's sit down and talk with the mayor. Let's bring our issues to the table and let's see if we can work together to get something done, because to me, that's the only way we will be able to rise. Another topic I want to talk about, the last topic, Mark, I want to talk about, and that is ending public education. Is it a good idea? Because I've been seeing a lot of things, not only locally, but nationally, where the budgets are being cut so paper thin, and most of it's due to Felon 47 gutting the Department of Education and funding being low for especially blue states. So what do you say about public education? You and I both came up in the public education system, and we have varying opinions. So give me your opinion on what you feel about what's going on with the Chicago public school system.
I mean, well, when it comes to that, I just always felt that it's been underfunded, like in certain areas for like a long time. I mean, when you look at comparatives of Whitney Young High School to Harper High School, which is the school that I attended, and you see the vast difference. I mean, when it comes to public education at first, and that's what frustrates me about just pretty much the state of this country, and it's been like this for a long time, is the fact that I feel that every school should have the same resources. Every school should be equally balanced to give kids opportunity. When you have certain schools that when you have 36 kids in the classroom, you already know 18 of them kids ain't gonna learn jack. They're not gonna learn anything. They're gonna get distracted easily. They're gonna lose focus or whatever and stuff. And then you got all kind of different types of kids. You got kids that has learning disabilities. A lot of times those learning disabilities go undiscovered for years and years. I mean, if somebody have a dyslexia, these kids don't understand what that is when they're 4 and 5 years old. They just think it's something wrong with them and just think that they're stupid or whatever. They're not smart enough, not capable. Public school, that was pretty much something that was created, again, thanks to the hands of black women and stuff like that. Because, the way they used to do education was way different back then. But again, this is something that we don't invest in. So here's my thoughts on if you want to just completely eliminate public education, then if you do that, where you gonna put these kids and stuff, and who's gonna be educating them? Because is you gonna be able to have household that can do home schooling or that can afford tutors and things like that? Most of them is not gonna be able to do that. So what I feel about it again is every school should have the equal amount of resources, no matter what the zip code is. You should have all of the things, and this country can provide those things. We can. Because, you know why? Because we just sit there and spend about almost $70 billion over there in Iran. Well, we still don't know what the reasons was because the stories keep on changing, right?
Right.
We have money for a whole lot of different things, when it comes to wars or, whatever the case, but the basic things that you need, education should always be on top of the list because you're trying to provide for the youth, for the new generation, the future leaders of this country. If you want everybody to be proud and true Americans and things like that, you're gonna need to educate the new generation to have the knowledge that they need to push the country forward.
Yeah, it's one of them situations where the way I see it, Mark, is look, children need to be educated. And as you said, some of us need to be educated in different ways. And I think there are ways to do that. But unfortunately, we have to get into that discussion again about funding that's being spent on gold ballrooms and all these other silly and ridiculous things that this government is investing in right now. Not children's education or their futures, but frivolous things that make absolutely no sense to no one. So I look at it like this. You got people who are trying to educate their children the best they can. Some people are homeschooling, and they've chosen that option because what their children are learning in school is simply not enough. It's like you and I spoke earlier offline, where you said they're just trying to get kids ready to have a job, not a career. And that's what people want to have, a career, not a job, because anyone can get a job. But how about having a career where you can afford, to grow a family eventually, if that's something that you want to do, and all the other different things that you may want to do what families do, be able to go on trips, enjoy life, teach your children about things that are going on in their communities and insights on what's going on across the world. Of course, another thing that's part of that education I felt, especially myself, was lacking, and that is the history of Black Americans in this country. And we're talking about after slavery, because there were a lot of different things that we did and accomplished and achieved, but we never got the credit for, right? So it's one of those things where that's what we've been looking at, and that's what we've been looking for. And I think the education system is failing in that aspect. And right now, it appears we're going backwards instead of moving forward.
Well, that all goes with the whole, curriculum and things like that. When you talk about, things that these kids aren't learning, or they only getting, the basic information they need to know just to fill out a job application before they can work for somebody else. I mean, and the lack of, history, what they're allowed to, teach, that's all part of the curriculum. And that's all due to, not enough of us showing up at these school board meetings and things like that, where we have a chance to, influence things like that. Moms of Liberty, which is that, crazy right-wing Republican women's group and stuff like that. They sit there and, infiltrated a lot of them school boards, and, that's how they got rid of, so many, books out the libraries and, out of the school, and killed these discussions in the curriculum and all of that stuff, because they was able to do that when they outvoted a lot of people and got a lot of people moved out of the positions. We could be doing the same thing, but of course, many people have these jobs that don't work with them to be able to get up, that early to go at 10 or whatever the case is. But those are one things that people can do in their communities and get is attend those school board meetings and let their voices be heard. And it's, again, it comes with the lack of resources, as we don't. It's not the time for everybody to be successful. Simple as that. We don't have an interest in that, because if you look at the numbers and things like that, when you look at all the schools around the world, including places like China and Iran, that's why the United States having such a tough time dealing with them, because Iran has a lot of intelligent people. They testing scores or whatever. Their schooling is pretty much top notch, just like China. China teaches, their kids to become owners, and that's where they lay very heavily on science and math. We did not do that in this country, and that's all set like that by design, because we don't want everybody to achieve certain kind of goals and things like that. I mean, it's that whole power concept, that whole structure of trying to keep certain groups of people down as you uplift very few groups. So it got to come a time that we have to really start to really focus and pay attention and demand better for these school systems. Closing schools ain't just the answer. I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't believe it's not. I believe it's getting more resources in those schools. You should be spending as much resources in building schools than you do in building prison systems.
Well, you got right now what's going on here in the city of Chicago is the budget is being cut. So there are assistant principals, there are sports programs, there are all kind of arts programs. All of these things are going to be cut. And we see that there aren't enough good teachers going around for all the students. So that's why they're saying, look, these underperforming schools, they kept trying to close them. Under Rahm Emanuel, they closed a lot of them. And what Mayor Brandon Johnson was trying to do is say, look, we're not closing any more schools. However, the shortfall in the budget, it's going to have to be tough times right now for the Chicago public school system. And this is going on nationwide because there are other states as well where I've been reading about that, you know, their school systems are having issues as well. But of course, once again, they still want those 10 commandments on the wall, though. If they don't know anything else, they'll know that.
Well, yeah, and that's the big problem with that is like, yeah, that's the thing too. As well as attack on black people, they attack the education. That's why they're destroying like the federal education. They got rid of like a whole lot of people and stuff. Now they try and get like a lot of people back. I mean, Linda McMahon, she got grilled in front of like the Senate committee a few days ago and all that kind of stuff, and she couldn't answer a lot of questions because she don't have no business being in the job to begin with.
Exactly.
And she knows, and everybody knows.
It was a
she was put there to pretty much destroy the federal education because, again, they want to keep on saying like, oh, we want to put it in the hands of the state. But I mean, the real story is like they don't want to educate. They don't want to uplift, you know, these kids out here that's struggling in certain communities. Depends on what your zip code is, what area you live in. If you live in urban and rural areas, they don't want you to do anything but be workers, to be to work in servitude. You know what I'm saying? You could be good enough to sit there and like maybe work on somebody's car or do like, you know, manual labor. They don't want you to be educated enough where you can actually do something that can help the whole world. They don't want you to be able to learn how to develop medicine or develop all kind of skills like computer technology and stuff. That's a big thing. You know, they don't want people in those businesses, in those jobs. There's only certain ones that they want to have in place of that. And then it goes to like when you go into like the college level and stuff, that's why you see them trying to bring in so many foreigner kids, you know, coming over on those visa programs to go to schools out here and all that kind of stuff. They try to bring like a lot of those people over to like, you know, use their talents and their skills to like, you know what I'm saying, get involved in all kind of different businesses. And when you have like the like ability to like properly educate the kids that we have here. So that's where like you see like, you know, the MAGA people like, you know, clashing amongst each other because the ones that has the meme and things like that, they bring these people over from different countries to work in different companies doing these different kind of skillful labor as far as like a computer programming and like AI and all of that type of stuff because they don't want to sit there and spend the time or resources on like educating their own American-born kid. So it's like a big messy situation and stuff that needs to be addressed and cleaned up. And we have the ability in this country to do so if we choose to. But it's going to take us, the people, to sit there and take stands on that type of stuff and demand that type of stuff. You have to demand that out of your politicians, locally, federally, statewide, all of it.
Yeah, because otherwise, Mark, we're not going to have a school system or program for anyone. That's why this topic was a good topic to talk about, because we're in trouble when it comes to education. And we don't know, you know, if we're going to be able to get out of this thing. We hope that we can, but it's one of those things where we just don't know right now, because from everything I'm seeing, they're trying to break down more education and more education. And it's just hurting our children, because we're saying we're sending our kids to school to learn to be the best. How can they learn to be doctors? How can they learn to be lawyers? How can they learn to be astronauts if they don't have the education to move forward?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we believe that we send our kids to do that, but again, like we just said, they're simply not. And it's like, again, it's up to personal responsibility as a parent and things like that to sit there and ask your kid hey, so what you learned in school today? Like what's going on? Like to be on top of that studies. But I think we had spoke about that off mic when you were saying a lot of kids use schools as babysitters. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't get involved as much as we should in the education there. Like a lot of parents are too embarrassed because they don't know a whole lot of stuff because they didn't learn a whole lot of stuff or they didn't attend college and stuff when they was young and stuff like that. So, they too embarrassed to ask questions because maybe they can't keep up or understand what's going on. But again, and order for us to progress as a community, as a country, as a society, period, whatever you need to get that education. You need to understand good history. I mean, as you said before, in your song, how you gonna know where you're going if you ain't know where you been? I mean, that's some real stuff. That's real talk.
Yeah, that's a real conversation and real talk as you just laid it out, because unfortunately, unless something changes drastically, we're going to be in a lot of trouble with this situation and our children for the future. Well, folks, it appears our time is up. We're glad that you came in to listen to us talk about real grown men issues that are happening in our communities. Mark, it was glad to have you come in and join us on the podcast.
Always a pleasure. We hope everybody check out WeRazNation.com and all the platforms that we're involved in, whether it be video clips on YouTube, on the Spotify. We once again trying to expand more, and we would love to get more you guys to get involved with us, get in the comments, whatever it is that you can do, we would greatly appreciate.
Yeah, head on over to WeRazNation.com. Check out what we got going on. Go over to YouTube. Check out our clips on the Grown Men Podcast. A lot of new things are going to be happening. We're going to put up more clips soon, and we'll have a lot more topics. And like Mark just alluded to, drop us a line. Let us know how you feel or if something you heard in the podcast interests you or you wanted to give a rebuttal. But anyway, we want to hear from the people. So hit us up on all our links. Head on over to WeRazNation.com and check us out. Well, until next time, folks, I am your host, BAN, and we will talk to you soon.
Grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud.